Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in Ezekiel chapter 43. And this, the from here, it's only a few chapters to 48, right? I believe 48 is the last chapter. Um, so just really kind of just four more chapters. And I this is kind of a puzzling few chapters for me for this reason. It is a detailed description of the um, temple, okay? the um, the construction of the temple, and this is much like if you go back and you see the instructions of the tabernacle. And so this is a detailed um, uh, again a detailed uh, instructions on building the temple, the blueprints. You can say that they are the blueprints of the temple. And so the question, because this is a prophecy. So this is, remember, Ezekiel is, I think it's the 25th year that this prophecy is given to him. So just not really even halfway through the exile, the 70-year exile. But this is a future. So and then um so the questions becomes, when does this temple come? When does this temple when is this temple going to be built, constructed? And well, I'm not clear on it. What I'm telling you, I'm not clear. And it kind of presents several issues. Let's say if it's now let's for the sake of it, which I certainly don't believe that it is. But let's say that the temple is constructed um, at, and it's referring to the 70-year, after the 70-year exile. That didn't happen. Then there, uh, I think there was a restoration of the temple, if I'm not mistaken. And then there was a temple that was constructed and built, and I have, and I, apologies for not doing my historical background on this, but that um, there was what's called the Solomon's second temple that was built somewhere around the neighborhood of 50 years before Jesus was born. We know that because the temple that was there, remember the Pharisees were shocked when Jesus said, "Destroy this temple and I will rear it up in 3 days." And they go, "Wait a minute, this thing's been in building for 46 years, and how you gonna rear it up in 3 days?" Okay, anyway, so and certainly that wasn't the temple, because some of the descriptions that we see here wasn't um, wasn't fulfilled. And then that temple, of course, was destroyed in AD 70. So then you go to the next kind of period of time of when this temple could be built. And it could be what we refer to as the millennial reign of Christ. Excuse me, the millennial reign of Jesus. It still represents some issues because of the Jewish rituals, commandments, offering, sacrifice. That's the biggest thing. We're going to get more into that. But so when does this temple show up? We don't know, and that's a kind of big question mark for me. I was going to try to really read fast through this, but as you can see, that sometimes you can't. So let's get to it, and then I'm going to try to see if we could pick up on when, and I guess kind of like I say, the some of the details about some of the details about this temple. Let me show you a quick picture before I go on to that is sort of the temple, if you want to say how it's going to look. Um, Let me bring myself into here. This is sort of the description that I am really reading and glossing over, stumbling over, I would even more say. So I can show you this picture here that is, like I said, if you want to go back and read that, then here's a good picture of what I'm reading through, okay? In other words, that this is how it possibly could look after. And again, when this temple is going to show up, and a lot of other stuff too is really why. Why? Now, there is also an indication of a temple in Revelation chapter 11. So is it possible that this could be something that in there? It's very, very speculation. I'm not in any way saying that. Only because I'm going to almost say that it can't be. But there is mention of it in Revelation chapter 11 that John, I think, is told to measure the temple, measure the court, and then the outer court is left for the Gentiles. That could be symbolic too for that. So anyway, let's go to there because it's all right. Ezekiel chapter 43. It said, he led me to the gate, the one that faces east, and I saw the glory of the God of Israel coming from the east. His voice sounded like the roar of a mighty waters, and the earth shone with its glory. Kind of interesting. Now, remember, this is a vision. This is a prophecy that he is seeing here. Okay, what's going to happen in the future? Verse 3 says, the vision I saw was like the one I seen when he came to destroy the city, and like the ones I had seen by the Chebar Canal. I fell face down, the glory of the Lord in the temple by way of the gate that faces east. Then the Spirit lifted me up and brought me to the inner court, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. Okay. While the man was standing beside me, I heard someone speaking to me from the temple. He said to me, Son of man, this is the place of my throne and the place for the soles of my feet, where I will dwell among the Israelites forever. The house of Israel and their kings will no longer defile my holy name by their religious prostitution and by their corpse of their kings. I'm sorry. My holy name, the house of Israel and their kings will no longer defile my holy name by their religious prostitution and by the corpse of their kings at their high places. Now, let's kind of again, so you see this prophecy. And here's the interesting thing about the prophecy now. During the time of Jesus, there was no king in Israel. There was no king. So when he says here that he said to me, Son of man, this place, okay, this is the place of my throne and the place for the soles of my feet where I would dwell among the Israelites forever. So now, forever means like that, forever, right? Then you got this projection into the future that this is going to be something that is going to be a fixture forever. And I'm going to say right now, I'm not clearly understanding. So then he goes on and he says, the house of Israel and their kings. So then he says kings. Now we have saw before where there would be some kind of kingdom for Israel with kings. Okay. David, of course, is one of the persons that is listed as the king. the house of king. So I guess my whole point is how this will pan out in the future. I have no clue. But here it is. He says here that we will have some kind of kings forever. All right. And then he says, verse 8, whenever they place the threshold next to my threshold and the doorpost beside my doorpost with only a wall between me and them, they were defiling my holy name by the detestable acts they committed. So I destroyed them in my anger. Now let them remove their prostitution and their corpses of their kings far from me, and I will dwell among them forever. So again, this is talking about Israel. This is talking about what God is going to do within Israel. Okay, and the idea is that we see in the midst of the corruption which they are experiencing because of their sin, God is saying He's going to remove that sinfulness far from them. And then the promise, of course, that God says, I'm going to dwell with Israel. Okay, verse 10 says, as for you, son of man, describe the temple to the house of the Lord. I'm sorry. As for you, son of man, describe the temple to the house of Israel. So again, notice who this will be addressed to and for Israel. And I will say this is not the church. This is not the church. So he says, as for you, son of man, describe the temple to the house of Israel, so that they may be ashamed of their iniquities. Let them measure its pattern, and they will be ashamed of all that they have done. Reveal the design of the temple to them, its layout with its exit and entrances, its complete design along with its statutes, design specifications, and laws. Now, here's the interesting thing here. Where does the law is going to place it out? So he said, write it down in their sight, so that they may observe its complete design and all its statutes and may carry them out. This is the law of the temple. All its surrounding territory on the top of the mountains, will be especially holy. Yes, this is the law of the temple. So again, and I'm going to not, we're not giving the answer to the questions that I'm raising. And that is, how will the law, and what law is referring to, that will be carried out in this temple, especially after the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ? So again, we're not giving those answers here, but I'm saying that's immediately what comes. That immediately that comes to my mind. All right, he says 13, these are the measurements of the altar, each unit of length, each unit being the standard length plus 3 inches. The gutter is 21 inches, 21 inches wide with this rim of the 9 inches around it. Now this is kind of the altar now. And I'm going to slide through all of the particular dimensions of this altar. And then it says, the height is square 21 feet. So all of this is what the altar is. Okay. Then he said to me, verse 18, he said to me, son of man, this is what the Lord God says. These are the statutes for the altars on the day it is constructed, so that burnt offerings may be sacrificed on it, and blood may be sprinkled on it. You are to give a bull from the herd as a sin offering to the Levitical priests who are from the offspring of Zodok, who approach me in order to serve me. This is the declaration of the Lord God. You must take some of its blood and apply it to the four horns in the altars of the four corners of the ledge, and all around the rim. In this way you will purify the altar and make atonement for it. Then you must take away the bull for the sin offering, and you must burn it outside the sanctuary in the place appointed for the temple. On the second day, you are to present an unblemished male goat as a sin offering. They will purify the altar just as they did with the bull. When you have finished the purification, you are to present a young blemished bull and an unblemished ram from the flock. You must present them before the Lord. You must present them before the Lord, and the priest will throw salt on them and sacrifice them as a burnt offering to the Lord. And you will offer the goat for a sin offering each day for 7 days, and the young bull and a ram from the flock. Both unblemished must also be offered for 7 days. The priest must make atonement. The priest must make atonement for the altar and cleanse it. In this way, you will consecrate it and complete the days of purification. Then on the 8th day and afterwards, the priest will offer your burnt offerings and fellowship offerings on the altar, and I will accept you. This is the declaration of the Lord God. Now, as I said, I don't know when this temple is supposed to be constructed. It presents to me a lot of questions. So if this is presented in the millennial reign, which means Jesus would be here reigning during the millennial reign, then why would we have the Levitical system, which the book of Hebrews basically tells us, right, that it is done away with since Christ is here. Now, that said, just questions at this point, because he doesn't really answers the question. Let me go back, for example, and take a look at something. Now, in chapter 40, if you remember, this is where he starts this. But he actually starts here after the destruction, remember, of Gog and Magog. In verse 21, it said, I will display my glory among the nations, and all the nations will see the judgment I have executed and the hand I have laid on them. From that day forward, the house of Israel will know that I am Yahweh their God, and the nations will know that the house of Israel went into exile on the account of their iniquity, because they dealt unfaithfully with me. Therefore I hid my face from them and handed them over to their enemies, so that they all fell by the sword. And I dealt with them according to their uncleanness and transgressions, and I hid my face from them. So, when we get down here, and he talks about the restoration, and then this is when he says right here, in the 25th year of our exile, the beginning of the 10th day of the month, 14th year after Jerusalem had been captured, on the very day the Lord's hand was upon me, brought me there. In the visions of God, he took me to the land of Israel and set me down on a very high mountain. So this is when, again, he brings him to Israel, and then he shows him. And then again, this begins this detailed construction. The detailed construction of, let me show you this too before I leave, of this temple. And the question is, when does this temple appear? When does this temple show up? Right? By the way, here are different versions of the temple too, just different artist renditions of that. But when does this, my biggest question is, when does this When is the construction of it? Is this during the millennial reign? We don't know. But anyway, we will continue in the next study. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. And I'll see you in the next study.